I think we're up about ready to go. I'm here with Marlon and Mike, two product managers, and we're going to go through 2025 AP automation breakthroughs as you can read on your screen. Let's take forward here now. And Mike and Marlon are going to be presenting the meat of this presentation. I'm here to MC and kind of tee them up for expressing their expertise. And we're going to go through touchless invoice processing and payment automation capabilities are going to be front and center in this and looking at some of the future of our product and of AP automation in general as well. So you'll probably take this around a half hour. If it goes a little longer for us to answer some questions, maybe we'll take it longer, but play by ear. And I'm Chris Crompton. It's my AI headshot, and I product marketing manager here. I've been here about a year, and I work with Mike and Marlon on a regular basis, and they're the true experts. So let's uh, hear from them. But and one thing I just want to lead into all of this is that you've got more and more things you need to be responsible uh, for doing all the discrete tasks that you have on your plate. So many repetitive manual tasks. We're going to show you how you can do that without any touches whatsoever, so that more and more can happen outside of your stress and your actual the time in your day. And this is a workflow of all the major parts of the AP process. And Mike, I believe, is going to talk through some of this process as it relates to what the problems that we're solving.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of our big objectives that we've had for this year is how do we eliminate manual touch points for our customers, specifically for AP professionals. And that's really always been our goal here at Charted, right? How do we build software that just eliminates the friction and the boundaries that AP teams find in their instances of NetSuite and just make them more efficient. So on the screen, you can see that there are some common problems and pain points that we've seen just in general, not necessarily focused on this year, but things like how do I onboard new vendors, and do I go with a portal approach, and how do I manage questions from vendors, and what happens if new people need to be added to those portals. How do I make sure that I have an OCR solution that's flexible enough for me in my business and allows me to not be kind of locked into a box of this is the information that I get off of that particular invoice, and allow it to learn and grow with time, and adapt to my business needs. Lots of other things that we you see as pain points in this different flow, like how can I estimate my accruals and other pain points that you might see in the AP process. So I think we have another question here that we're going to open up and kind of try to understand from you all where you're finding the most, repetitive manual processes for your AP teams. Give everyone a minute here to finish voting. Interesting. All right. So leading answer here is, reviewing invoices and manual entry seems to be one of the main pain points that people are feeling. Second pain point is really around chasing down approvals and processing of ACH payments. So I think that really actually aligns with what we're going to be talking about today. Myself and Marlon are going to be covering some of the advancements, right? We know there's always something to be working on, but we wanted to take a little bit of time today to help you understand um, what we have done this year, kind of do a little bit of a reflect and remind you where we started at the beginning of the year, and what enhancements have been made to just make your life easier and make our product even better. So we're going to start by looking at some of the enhancements we've made to the invoice automation flow, or Invoice AI is what we like to call it. We've talked about this a couple times, but we had kind of a high level objective this year to help eliminate some of the manual touch points for AP professionals. Like, where are there areas of opportunity that people are, just doing something that maybe they don't need to do, and we can make that process a little bit more efficient. So we started the year by looking at how we can automate some of the common actions that people need to take within the inbox view, and just bring that functionality of like the changes that they were making right to the inbox. So if you've been with our solution for a while, and you're on our new inbox, we near the beginning of the year launched the ability for you to reassign ownership and change the subsidiary that an invoice is associated with right within the inbox. You don't need to go, kind of dig in or open up the invoice in the split screen view and to make a change, and it's not getting saved. That was a really frustrating kind of experience for our users, and we wanted to make that a little bit easier and faster. Another thing I'll highlight is we're going to go through all these. I'm going to show all of them to you in a demo environment, just as kind of a quick recap, but wanted to highlight the changes that we've made. The next thing that we moved on to was, how can we improve just the navigational flow for our users, right? We are embedded inside of NetSuite. We think that's one of the big differentiators of our solution, is that you don't have to go to an external portal and kind of manage two different workspaces. But when you logged into NetSuite, if you're an AP professional, sometimes it took 2 to 3 to 4 clicks to even get into the inbox and figure out what you needed to start working on. So we wanted to streamline that navigation flow, provide an easy way to access the inbox and those common items that you might need to do right from your NetSuite home dashboard. The next kind of objective we took on was, how do we improve just the day-to-day processing items within the inbox and make that flow a little bit more efficient. So I called this continuous processing. Instead of you having to click into every single item within the inbox, hit the save button, go back to the inbox, and then pick another one, we were looking for a solution that we could help you kind of think of it as queue up a bunch of items, work through them more efficiently, and reduce that manual step of needing to return to the inbox and select the next item that you needed to work on. So we call that our save and next functionality. And again, I'll show that to you here in just a second if you're not familiar. The last thing, this is kind of our latest addition to our objective around reducing manual touch points for AP professionals, is touchless invoice processing. So with touchless invoice processing, I think we jumped forward a couple slides. Can we go back for a second, Chris? Thanks. With touchless invoice processing, what this allows us to do is, for a certain subset of your bills that we have a high confidence we can create correctly for you. This could be bills that are associated with purchase orders. We have an exact match to the purchase order. Let's go ahead and create that bill for you automatically, or certain vendors that you might receive invoices from that you know they're recurring bills. They're always the same. We're always getting the bill coded the right way when you've been reviewing it in the past. Let's kind of eliminate those items as something that you need to look at, and provide a way for those to be automatically created. So we launched that here just about 2 months ago, I believe it was now, and added in some functionality that takes away some of those redundant, recurring things that users were having to review, makes them able to be auto-processed, and just leaves the inbox and the items within the inbox with things that need a little bit more attention and a human needs to go ahead and focus on. So with that's enough talking about all these items. Let's go ahead and jump in and just do a quick demo of each one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and steal the screen share. Oops. Chris, can you stop sharing? And then perfect. Thank you. All right. So we'll go ahead and talk through each one of these features that I just covered on that last slide. The first one that I wanted to talk through is our navigation portlet that you can add to your NetSuite home dashboard. Like I said, we launched this earlier this year. I think it was in Q1 that this came out. So if you're not familiar, if you're someone that is using our inbox all the time and didn't know that you can do this, you can easily add this to your dashboard by just personalizing your NetSuite home dashboard. We also have some instructions on how to do that in our knowledge base if you're interested. in doing that. And what this does is this brings kind of a mini view of our AP dashboard directly into all of the other widgets that you might have on your NetSuite home dashboard. So you can easily see the bills that you need to review. Those are what's in your inbox currently, maybe bills that are not yet submitted for approval, and then any bill that is out pending for approval. And you get those same links to the underlying, searches that are on our AP dashboard, but it brings it right front and center when you log into NetSuite. So I'm going to go ahead and click into my inbox, and we'll go ahead and talk about some of the other features that we added around, again, streamlining those everyday activities that you might need to do as an AP professional. So this was kind of our next add for the year. We added in the ability to take actions on certain items within the inbox. So you can still remove an item from the inbox like you could before, but now I have a couple more options that I can take on anything that might be within my inbox. Maybe I want to reassign the subsidiary. Let's say this invoice came in. Maybe it's the first time we'd seen the invoice and we incorrectly assigned the subsidiary. I can easily make a change, update it to the correct subsidiary, or maybe reassign the owner. If you're a larger team and you have multiple users that are processing items within the inbox, maybe I wanted to switch this over to Marlon and let Marlon process this one in the demo account because I reviewed it and realized it's not really something that I need to process. I could easily do that. No longer do I have to, kind of make a note. Maybe if you're in the physical office, stick it on a sticky note and ask Marlon to go find this item within the inbox. I can quickly assign it to him and make sure that it's in his queue for processing. Another one that I kind of snuck in here, this was something we actually recently tackled, but it also does help with a commonly requested item that we received. And this was directly driven by customer feedback. We do hear you. We do understand that there are pain points, and as we can come across those quick wins, we do try to build those into the product. So not that long ago, we also added in the ability to filter by PO statuses within our inbox. So if you're a company that processes a lot of PO-backed bills, you might want to say, hey, I really want to focus on just the items that have a PO attached to them and it's in a pending billing status, right? It's ready for me to go ahead and process. Now you can easily do that with your filters and see, okay, that's the one purchase order that I have, bill associated with a purchase order, it's ready to go. Let me quickly take care of processing that. All right, clear out my filter here. Next thing I wanted to highlight is what I call our continuous processing or save and next functionality. So now when you go into an item within the inbox, the flow before, if you wanted to process multiple things, you had to sit here, review the one item, click the save button, go back to the inbox, grab the next thing that you wanted to process, click the save button. Wasn't super efficient. So we added in this ability to save and quickly move to the next item within the inbox. So I don't need to go back and kind of figure out what's the next thing that I want. It has the next item in the list. However I had the inbox sorted, it'll have that next item ready for me. I just have to click the button after I finish reviewing, and it takes me directly into the next item for processing, and I can review that and do the same thing, right? Kind of rinse and repeat as many times as you need. And all of those tools are great, right, for reviewing items that, still need a little bit of attention, right? Still need someone to look at them. But the last thing that we just launched, and do want to make sure that we highlight this, is the ability to process items without even the need for someone to look at them. So if I quickly drop in 2 different invoices into my inbox, they'll be scanned in real time. Because of the way that I have this demo account set up, it's also going to try to auto process those, right? So a couple different ways that we can auto process. It can either be because there's a purchase order in the system and we see that there's an exact match to that purchase order, or certain vendors, like I mentioned earlier, maybe they're high confidence vendors. You always are doing the same kind of expenses with them. Seems like Invoice AI is doing a really good job of always pre-populating the bill for you, and all you're doing is clicking the save button. Let's remove those from your queue and let you just focus on the other items that require attention. So if it figures out that it can auto create those for you, they'll be automatically created and saved in the system and can be submitted for approval. I didn't mention this in my overview, but we did also add this process tab. Some of you may have noticed that recently. Kind of gives you visibility into items that have been created recently from the inbox. So I'm going to quickly click into this first item. This was one of the ones that auto created on my demo here. You can see it pre-populated all the information like you would have expected, went ahead and created that bill, saved it, and submitted for approval. I didn't have to go and do the normal split screen view to review it, to create it. So that's really nice again for creating that efficiency for your AP teams. For think of it as the low-hanging fruit that really doesn't require their attention. They're still going to have to look at maybe more complex invoices that come in from vendors, or if you're filling in some certain details or splitting up invoices differently, all of that stuff doesn't have to go through the auto processing flow. You have control over which vendors you want to apply this logic to. So that's what I have to cover here on some of our enhancements around invoice processing and how we've tried to enhance that experience and build in some additional functionality for AP teams. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and turn it back over to Chris to share the slides, and Marlon for his part.
All right. So yeah, next up in terms of kind of enhancements and overall launches for the year on the payment side, really have like four main buckets here over the course of the year. I guess just to provide some background, like, payments really launched in 2024. So it's a newer product for us, but really have found a lot of our customers moving to this now over the course of the year versus January. We're now seeing a little over double the volume that we saw in the beginning of the year. So seeing a lot of growth on our payments offering. Historically, we've been focused primarily on both those outsourced check printing, which is essentially us mailing and printing that check on your behalf, as well as sending that to the vendor's address. So that's called our outsourced solution. And then the second is our ACH, which is electronic bank-to-bank payments within the United States. So when we looked at the first part of the year, we're primarily just focusing on some improvements, some quality of life improvements related to the release payment screen, where we find a lot of our customers are spending most of their time when it comes to payments. Just adding, additional layers of visibility, control, configuration, making it a little bit easier to, for example, exclude payments if you need to go to a vendor portal to make that payment. We're making that a little bit easier to do, as well as kind of interplaying with our on-premise check printing solution, which is what we use, what customers use today if they do want to print checks themselves in-house and not use our outsourced solution. They have a mail service that works for them. We provide that service as well. It's still important for us to support those check printing needs. We're seeing just across the board, industry-wide, like B2B payments still in 2025, we're at about 24% of B2B payments are made using checks. To some of you, this might be surprising. To others of you may not be the case. What we're finding is, it's a reality of our business, and we want to continue to support that. However, an important element of that is also providing that bridge from a check printing or from a check service to an ACH or an electronic payment. And so that's one of the values of kind of using payment automation on Charted. And so we've invested a lot in kind of making that process easier for folks to kind of mix and match and then eventually transfer some of those check payments into ACH. So as part, also, we're finding a lot of our customers do have these international payments that they need to continue to make to vendors. We're especially seeing, like, as we go up mid-market, we're seeing more needs for that across the board. International payments is quite complex. It does require usually logging into your bank to create like a wire using a wire template. If you have customers based in multiple countries, you have to deal with any kind of like compliance related or field related, country specific related fields that are required for those payments. So we kind of handle that in-house, and with our new international payments product, which we launched in in the early part of the first half of this year. And so we started really with US dollar as being that first segue into international payments. So our first release of this, we allowed payments to 200 plus countries through our international payments provider. You could do this all without leaving NetSuite. You don't have to log into your portal or manage credentials or wire templates. You could just handle that all inside of Charted. We found that USD was actually one of the more common ways to make payments even abroad. See a lot of vendors do accept this. They just convert it at time of receipt or have a multi-currency account. So that's where we kind of started in terms of international payments. And then the next evolution of that, which we launched a few months ago, is the FX side of that. So actually handling the foreign exchange component, allowing currency conversion, allowing yourself to pay a vendor in their native currency if they're billing in that currency. So with kind of the combination of Invoice AI, which Mike already walked you through, you can take a look at the invoice, take a look at what NetSuite supports for that vendor, what the vendor's currencies are, and then if there's a match there in terms of what the invoice is actually saying, it's going to grab that currency and create that bill, and then we can now follow through and make that payment to the vendor using the international payment rail. And I'll demo this in a short minute, but the nice part about international payments is the vendor onboarding process is essentially the same process that lives for ACH and check. The process for releasing payments is also the same. So there's not many process changes on your side to be able to make those payments to international vendors. We also handle, kind of the FX, the compliance aspect, and then also any kind of like tricky accounting scenarios that relate to currency exchange, gains and losses on currency fluctuations throughout the process. NetSuite is going to kind of natively handle that. So we essentially put in that data through NetSuite, and then some of those tricky accounting scenarios are going to be captured inside of NetSuite. And then the last product here, which we're currently developing, is not available to the broader market yet, but it's called Accelerated ACH. And so this is essentially for those kind of one-off payments that are have a due date. They're almost late. Maybe they are already late. We wanted to enable a faster way to make an ACH payment in those circumstances. So that's going to be a new payment method that is going to be launching here pretty soon. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. So I'm going to be primarily focusing just on the international payment aspect because that's the majority of the kind of the new product that we built over the last year, and walking through that process. So it all starts kind of in that pay portal, where you send and kick off a notification or an invite to the vendor. So once you send that invitation, the vendor is going to receive an email that contains a private link to the payment onboarding experience. They're going to be prompted to enter in like basic level information, and then they are also going to be asked on how they want to get paid. So again, direct debit or ACH, check. Those are both US only specific payment methods. And then there's international payments. So once they kind of select international payments, they're going to be entered into that part of the flow. They're going to be able to select the country that their business is based out of. And then they are also going to select the currency that they prefer to be paid. In terms of the currency, it does need to be supported on kind of the vendor record. It has to be supported in NetSuite as well, in order for this option to be displayed to the user. You can also force a vendor to pay in one currency versus another, specifically USD. If that's your business and you only want to pay in USD, you can do so. Otherwise, you can give the vendor that choice. They're going to enter in all their banking information confirm that everything looks good, agree and continue, and complete the process here. Now the businesses have an opportunity, just as we do for ACH and check, to review that payment method. Provided everything looks good, you can approve it here. It's an extra level of security and control. Now let's go to then creating the bill payment inside of NetSuite. And many of you are probably familiar with this screen. If you're NetSuite users, this is already like kind of NetSuite native functionality. The nice part about payments is it does kind of run off of that bill payment record. It's listening for these records to be created, but it is a process that your AP teams are already accustomed to. So you're going to create your bill batch inside of here. You can see the currency field or currency column is already reflected here. You can put a filter on that. You can also just sort. In this case, let's just select a few different multi-currency payments here. And then we're going to create a bill batch for this particular, or for these 3 different bills. If we go to payment, so then at that point, once the bill payment has been created, Charted is going to listen for that, is going to populate inside of the ready for release queue to kick off the review process or the release process for that payment. Now you can see there's 2 payments here. There's one ACH and then there's an international payment type. Again, the nice part about international payments is it kind of combines everything in one place, which a lot of customers have given feedback is international payments is hard to kind of reconcile and have the same release process as ACH and check. So ACH, check, international, they're all going to live in that same release flow. In the case that this is a multi-currency payment with an FX component, it's going to reflect both the kind of the pay-in amount and the payout amount. So in this instance, we can see this bill, it's being paid out in euros. You can see 233 euros, which translates to 260 US dollars. That exchange rate being used here, it is going to be kind of pooled periodically. You can actually refresh it manually as well if you want to see kind of the latest exchange rate. Those exchange rates are obviously changing, fluctuating all the time, just like a market. So we're going to kind of estimate that exchange rate, and then we're going to push the final exchange rate into the bill payment once, or into the actual transaction here once the payment has been released. So let's go ahead and release the payment. Also, yeah, we added exporting and filters to all of or most of our views for payments. So in case you do want to feed that into your BI tool or just Excel, play around with it, and manipulate that data, you can do that in case you have like hundreds of transactions and want to do some analysis. And then let's go ahead and just release. Again, it's pretty much a one-click release process once everything is in this experience. I go ahead and submit. Now, once the payment has been submitted, it's going to show up in payment history. This is going to be kind of your reporting source of truth for all pending or successful payments. We're going to create kind of a new status as well. The international status inside of this, so you can see all international payments or ACH payments or check payments that are pending, as well as communicating what that final exchange rate is going to be on the transaction. Again, NetSuite's going to handle the FX accounting once that final exchange rate is communicated to them, and you can also reference the NetSuite transaction identifier, which will send you a link to the bill payment as well if you want to see that. And at that point, the international wire is en route, and really concludes our demo here. If it's a case of you're sending US dollars to a international vendor, obviously it's not going to have an exchange rate. It's all in USD. Makes the accounting really simple. Those fields just won't show up. So yep, that concludes international payments.
Great, thanks, Marlon. We're at the tail end now of this this webinar. And I'm going to just share what's coming up next. And then I think we probably have time for a question or two. We'll see. Here we are. And we'll go. All right. So what's next on the horizon? And e-invoicing is something that Mike is heading up. So Mike, you want to share what's coming?
Yeah, I'll talk through the top two here and then turn it over to Marlon. Yeah, e-invoicing is something that's on our radar. If you are a company that has international subsidiaries, or you are one of our international customers, you obviously know that e-invoicing mandates are growing, and we're not that's definitely something that we're aware of and want to make sure that we are addressing. So we're currently in the process of building out some e-invoicing functionality to start being compliant in those areas where mandates are coming soon, or sometimes have already been enacted. We're also building a solution that's going to be flexible enough to what I call be US ready. So there is a growing movement, even though right now the United States doesn't have a lot of e-invoicing mandates. There is some exciting opportunities for US companies to start sending invoices to each other, even if it's not mandated. And we want to make sure that we're in a place to benefit from that for our US customers. We're also continuing to look at our customer-driven enhancements. I mentioned a few of those small quick wins on our call here today, things that customers had brought up to us that were really annoyances in their processes, and we kind of looked for a solution of how we could make things more efficient. But this is going to continue to be a big focus for us into next year. We do have some plans in the works to address some of the the bigger things that people have brought up over and over again, and like, hey, it would be really nice if I could scan vendor credits along with just vendor invoices, right? So that's something we're evaluating here as another potential item to tackle, as well as just a little bit more flexibility, right? Like the inbox is great. We get a lot of good feedback, but some companies, customers tell us, I'd really like to be able to change the order of the columns, or bring in potentially this piece of information. So we're looking at how we can support a little bit more flexibility to tailor to your business practices. Marlon, I'll let you cover the payment stuff.
Yep. And so on the payment side, we have a number of payments enhancements in the pipeline that we're really excited to start working on. One is the notion of payment scheduling. So the idea behind this is to reduce the amount of steps it takes to release a payment. We see that typically our customers, they're doing about like 1 or 2 releases per week when it comes to payments. We want to make it easier to kind of schedule and set up these payment runs in advance, and actually also go a step further by suggesting when a payment does get released based on the timeline, the payment method, based on the due date as well. So kind of calculating, being intelligent, and helping take some of that manual labor and reporting heavy aspect of releasing a payment. So excited to be working on that one here pretty soon. Improved vendor onboarding is also a huge component of our application, huge component of being in the AP business. We do have our advanced vendor onboarding solution, which a lot of customers are using. We are also have kind of built our own payment or payee onboarding experience. We're looking to kind of consolidate these a little bit more, make them a little bit more dynamic, make a more unified experience between the two. And also, just improve the customization, the ease of use, and ease of implementation around this as well. So more to come on that as well. And then in terms of big initiatives next year, looking to expand globally and actually offer our payments capabilities for both Canadian and UK-based entities. So if you're a business in one of these regions, then we can actually onboard your bank account to withdraw and originate payments from both Canadian and British bank accounts. And this will come as well with kind of those local rails attached as well. So for Canada, it's going to be EFT, which is the ACH equivalent in Canada. And then for the UK, it will be Bex, which is their version of ACH. So excited to be, kind of launching and kind of expanding internationally as well when it comes to payments. Chris, you want to take it away?
Yeah, let's take it. So I want to go into the question we received from Jason. As you're looking at this, you can download our guide, The Touchless Future of AP in NetSuite. This is something that was released very recently. So take out your phone and scan that. It's probably the easiest way. It's hard to do a link in a webinar. Right. Although I guess we could put it in the chat, but so, uh, here's the question. And this is for Mike. This relates to touchless invoice processing. Is part of the touchless processing around the system coming up with the appropriate memo lines for the bill? For example, if there's a PO for consulting and they're getting monthly bills with the memo with such and such lines, that has the month in it, can you start populating based on the month received?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this really goes back to it's kind of not directly related to touchless invoice processing, but something I didn't talk about with touchless invoice processing that does relate is AI directions. We launched that at the end of last year, so I didn't kind of include it in the presentation here. But AI directions are a way for us to do a couple of different things. But one of the use cases is this right here, right? If you're saying, hey, I want to look at the information that's on the invoice and I want to propose a memo to be automatically filled in based on certain details like, hey, it's for this vendor and it's this type of expense and it's for this month and this year. We can craft an AI direction, and it's just a natural language prompt of how do we determine what the memo is supposed to be for, a particular bill or a particular vendor. So it's definitely something that could be automated through AI directions and then would flow into the touchless invoicing flow. If you have questions about that, we do have some information in our public knowledge base about it. Also welcome to connect with your customer success manager or our support team if you have questions and want to be directed towards some of those resources for sure.
Yeah, and it was really the strength of not just our Invoice AI that can pull things, from its own intelligence, but the strength of AI directions that allowed us to then build touchless invoice processing because our system was so robust on the back end. And it's really so it really stinks to have to go through all the manual steps if it's the same exact thing you're changing each time. So that's the AI directions automate that last step, and once you have that piece locked in, then you could set this to just happen automatically for all subsequent invoices that follow the same rules. So that I'm sure all you would love to have less tedious work on your plate, and that's what AI directions plus touchless invoice processing makes that happen. And so the next slide actually says questions. So if we are kind of out of time, you can message us at any, and I'll have a customer success manager if you're working with us, and if you're not working with us, go to our website and click get started. It's just a way to start the conversation and get your own custom demo of all the things you've looked at today. Any final words? Merry Christmas, or Happy Hanukkah, happy holidays. All right. Mike's
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all. Take care.